and innovative ideas. And I kind of talked about this at the start, that it's not necessarily a principal, it's not necessarily the network head, it might not necessarily be the person who's been teaching the longest, it might be somebody who's very, very new into the profession. It's bringing those new ideas, prepared to take those risks, prepared to sort of share best practices, and working across within the networks, and then eventually working across networks. And I'd probably say that a group of maybe 10 teachers. And I've put up there, not level differentiated. Basically what I mean by that is I don't want just a group of, say, EYE teachers or or O&A level teachers. Because when I was talking, I think Ms. Sabui and I had this conversation a while ago, and we said it's not necessarily that, sort of an O-level teacher might know everything, and likewise an EYE teacher might know everything about EYE. We'd expect them to be specialists, but there's certainly, I'm sure there's room for where we can share ideas. So we don't really necessarily, these communities don't necessarily have to be differentiated by level. And a can-do attitude, that it's going to be a group of people who want to come in and actually make a change and have an impact on teaching and learning in the classroom.
So just a couple of points from me on this. I think the first is, okay, well, how will this work? Do you have time in the school timetable to do this? Do you have time in your busy weekends or evenings? We've already heard that many people work into the evenings and weekends already. So how are you going to create time is a question for you. And that's something that if you are in control of your timetables, great. But if you're not, then obviously you've got to negotiate time with the network and with the regional office, with the head office and so on. That's something for you to consider. The other point is, don't feel that you have to structure these really, really rigidly. Allow for special interest groups to emerge. You may be interested in a particular element of teaching and learning. You may be interested in really developing an understanding of a particular part of the physics syllabus, for example. You may be interested in working with some colleagues on how to communicate better with parents, I don't know. The ideas and the sort of reason for coming together are yours. They're not forced upon you, and I think that's really important. You create the groups and allow them to be self-forming to a greater or lesser extent depending on the need. Okay? So it's not something that I would say is imposed.
No, not at all. And that's why when you go back to your networks and you go back to your kind of schools, I want you to really think about who are going to be part of your first sort of working group, who's going to be part of this teaching and learning community. And it might be that, you speak to maybe 4 or 5 people before you get maybe 1 or 2 from the 4 or 5 that you've spoken to, because once you ask them the question, you might be thinking somebody's really up for this, but then when you ask them the question, they might turn around and say, well, do you know what, I don't think I've genuinely got the time because I've got other commitments at home. And that's absolutely fine. It's that kind of high challenge, low fear environment, isn't it? That it's okay to say no. We shouldn't just all expect that just because GM Studies stands here and says this needs to be done, we all go away and do it. Don't mean that at all. We actually have to sort of, we have to be realistic about these things. So what will these teaching and learning communities do? Introduce different learning and teaching strategies. I nearly put AFL up there because when I first arrived here, that's what everybody was telling me, that we have to do AFL in our classrooms. But I went for differentiation instead. So, but there's lots of, as you know more than I do. You're more experienced than I am. Lots and lots of different teaching and learning strategies. Sharing those strategies, listening to each other. And coming out with ideas and sharing them with networks as well, and sharing them sort of across the southern region. Develop greater collaboration between colleagues, sharing best practice. I see this all the time when I go to different schools, and I come away with lots of different ideas. And what I'd really like to see sort of over the next 2 or 3 months is, now that we've got these network heads in place and we've got network academic coordinators in place as well, let's start sharing those best practices amongst each other in our cluster of schools. And then the next step, of course, will be to share it across networks. Accept responsibility for implementation of these best practices. You know, we can attend sessions, we can have discussions, we can have really lengthy meetings, and then nothing really happens. So that's what, you know, we were talking about before, that we've got to be realistic. We've got to set ourselves some goals and then try to achieve them. Become students of teaching. And then do book reviews as well. And I've put, most importantly, I think there is the last one, bridging the gap between existing knowledge and new knowledge, because that's crucial to improving teaching and learning in our classrooms. I should have said this at the start. I will send this out to all of you anyway, so you'll have it so for your records. So bridging the gap between existing knowledge and new knowledge.
So I have one final thing to leave with you, and that is this. Teachers are to die for. Okay, I want you all to remember that. Teachers are to die for. And what I'm particularly interested in you remembering is that D-I-E bit, die. Okay? Now, what we mean by that is not literally the translation of it, but actually, D stands for diagnose, I stands for implement, and E stands for evaluate. In other words, formulate whatever professional learning community you require, whether it's around good practices, whether it's around becoming students of teaching. But if you decide on, right, this is where our students are, the diagnose bit. These are the teaching practices that need to take our students on, and we're going to try out a few of these new teaching practices that we hear about, that we read about, that we see. And then we evaluate them to see whether or not they were effective. Okay? If you can get that established in your teaching faculty, diagnose, implement, and then evaluate, I think you're onto something very special. Okay? So good luck with that. It's not going to be easy, I promise you, and it's a long process, it's a long journey, but it's a journey that I think you need to take, I think we all need to take. Because we're still learning at Cambridge, becoming students of teaching. In the 3 years that I've been with Cambridge, I've learned a huge amount. And obviously we want to now share that with our schools. And I'd like you to do the same. You know, don't stand still, because your students certainly are. And I'd like to encourage you as much as I possibly can in terms of developing this culture of professional learning communities in your schools. So thank you.
What we'd like to do now is give you people an opportunity to ask questions. So we've gone through some ideas this afternoon with you, and we'd like to now open up the floor to all of you to ask any questions, either from, well, really you can ask them anytime, but any questions that you've got regarding teaching and learning communities, any ideas that you'd like to share, because as I said at the start, that I'm sure, you know, your ideas are going to be a lot better than my ideas are there. So please feel free to ask questions and share ideas. Where would you like to start?
Mr. Lee was posing questions, quite challenging one, and now it's your turn to pose a challenge to me. So let's see who is.
Not too hard, please, not too hard.
So I will run back from that part of the auditorium to this side. So is anybody ready to pose a question? About working of this PLCs, from where to start with, etc., etc. Any new thought, any idea? Yes.
Right, combing my I was just combing my hair. Thank you. Anyways, I think, not a question, but since earlier schools are working on inset plan, and that is one of the learning community which we are trying to get connected to, and this presentation has connected us well with that. You must have seen SR Schools, I have sent that email out. So very soon, in 10 days time, we are putting up this consolidated pack of teaching strategies, which are instructional teaching strategies. And these are 10 strategies which we are sharing with each other. And you all are working and researching on it. I think take it as a first step to learning community, because that's how you can then disseminate all this information to your working groups. Don't force your teachers to do all the activities at the same time. Any strategy can be adopted by a group of 5 teachers, as they say, or a group of 10 teachers. Work with them and see how this ripple effect moves into your schools and your further classrooms, and then later to the schools. We have also talked about, connecting classrooms through ICT integration and otherwise connecting classrooms. I think this would be a great opportunity for all of us, whether sitting in Sakkar or Quetta or Hyderabad or Karachi, to connect our classrooms and see how different teachers are using the same strategy in different ways. So let's take this, what we are doing already in INSET, as our first step, and this can be done by senior schools, junior schools, middle schools, and even earlier schools, because strategy is a strategy which can be used all through. Thank you.
I have a pure example of community learning by the maths department, which was done a couple of years ago. It was initiated by the head office when Aruj was here, and she had made a maths community on the Facebook page. And Amara, I suppose, is sitting here. She was part of that, and many other maths teachers were there. And I loved, reading that, because they would share that this is how I taught a difficult concept, and then they would pull in ideas, do it this way and do it that way, and that went on very well. And Amara was a very regular, participant of that, and she was giving ideas to everybody, and she can continue doing that, I suppose.
So you've got another job to reactivate that maths learning community among.
A recent example of the learning community for early years was the introduction of Edmodo group. So we all got together and pulling our ideas, discussing about the strategies, and it was an effective group as well.
Great. Can I ask a question about that? So self-forming, essentially, I imagine. And then did it end because you felt you'd reached a certain point, and that
no, it has not ended yet. We are still going with that. Yes, it's ongoing. We still have. But people are putting up their ideas, their questions here.
Further, it is moving into teachers and then parents community as well. We are reaching up to parents community as well through Edmodo, and this process has already started. Every school ICT teacher plus the teachers who were on the course of early years are familiar with it, and very soon these teachers will make a community by January and connect to the parents. So this is building up.
Fantastic.
So we are trying to do it. I hope it works.
And the introduction to this has been given to the students as well,
Yes.
of grade 1s and 2s.
Yeah, wonderful. Is Edmodo the platform that you use across the network?
So I'll come back to this part of the auditorium. Just let me state one response from this.
Well, my question is, as you asked the question, my question is that if you're making this teachers' clan and they become the think tank for the branches and they start shifting back and forth for the teaching purpose or for the training purpose or whatsoever, we do have a department of professional development who is training the teachers, and they're going in and fixing the errors if there are any. So this new idea that you're floating is what? Are we having any branch of the professional department or something that we are going to create in our own campuses? Or
the idea behind this is just to create teaching and learning communities within your own network initially. Okay, so through your network head, through your network academic coordinator, and then through the schools within your network. So it's not something that's somebody's going to kind of parachute in from head office and say, you have to do it this way, or even from regional office, you have to do it this way. It's going to be your own thing. So like this slide of the right gave the example of the maths Facebook page. Social media, if used in the right way, is a really powerful tool. So it's going to be entirely up to you as a network as to how you develop your community. There are no kind of sets of rules at all for it.
It's more like a flexible structure of sharing ideas, collaborating, and dialogue dialogical thinking. Yeah.
My understanding is about learning communities that, like, if our schools going to be, if we have learning communities in our schools, I think many problems we can overcome very quickly. Like, for example, there are some examples which I would like to quote. Yesterday only we were having this customer service workshop, which was organized by our network head, Ms. Nafisa, and the coordinators were there, and there were teachers, people who are actually dealing at the reception desk with the parents. Excellent. We had heads there, SMs, whoever is involved in dealing with the parents. So that is one example where we all were together as a learning community. Another example is that we have just merged 3 campuses, 3 branches into a campus. Junior branch, prep, and the senior girls. This time in INSET we have planned that the senior teachers who are teaching O-levels, they will be guiding, they have already planned workshops for the prep teachers. And this is going to, the point is there, bridge the gap. Yes, we are going to bridge the gap like that, and teachers themselves, as they are the practitioners, they will be helping prep teachers and juniors also. And we are going to bring a culture of CIE learning pattern right from junior school to the senior school. Another thing, I have a lot of points, so I should go on.
We have time till 8 o'clock.
Okay.
It's only got a flight to
Okay. So another very important thing is that city school, you all yourself have the ARD in the meeting with us. She focused on clubs. I think clubs in the school, that's also another very good way of building these learning communities, because let's say, for example, the photography club in the school. Some teachers will be there, students from O-levels, and class 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, all of them will be there, and they all will be learning. I think the gist of learning community is where everybody is learning. And